These are historic issues that we haven't seen. So when I go back to 2014, where we had the labor issues on the West Coast with the ILW and the PMA, which is the management side, there was no strike, there was no official lockout, but there were days where management would send people home, send the workers home. There were days when the workers would just walk off the job. Productivity suffered, and we were upwards of 25 to maybe 30 vessels that could be anchored outside of the ports of LA and Long Beach at any given time. This has exceeded all of that back in 2014. So what we're seeing today is 35 to 40 container vessels, just container vessels that are at anchor. And those container vessels have all the stuff that you and I are buying. So productivity at the ports remains challenging. They just reported that 1,800 people, longshoremen, have tested positive or in some sort of quarantine, which is really impacting the labor there. So we have these historic high volumes. This is typically, the slack seasons for ocean freight, but we have historic high volumes. And if you look at some of the indicators that they put in place in the West Coast, you can see what's coming in each week, looking out X number of weeks. It's not slowing down. Everybody is trying to pull in goods now before Chinese New Year, which starts February 12th. And there's been a lot of talk around the Chinese government not letting workers go back home for the Lunar New Year just because of COVID concerns. There's a lot of talk about factories working right through the holiday, which is kind of unheard of. So there's normally a ramping down before Lunar New Year, and then everything's shut down in China, and then a ramp back up. So it's really like a month-long process. But what we're going to see is volumes super high right up until things start to ramp down, if they do, and then super high coming out of the gate as well. And there's really no end in sight on these volumes. So we expect this congestion on the West Coast to continue. Even when vessels are able to get into their berthing slot, it's taking longer to unload a vessel. It's taking super long just to make that container available for a trucker to come in and pull it to a warehouse or to bring it to a rail ramp. We're hearing nightmare stories of 2 weeks. On average, it's taken around 7 days. And then you have the equipment shortage problem, right? So now you've got all these vessels that are at anchor, or say they have been berthed in LA and Long Beach, but you've got all these containers that have stuff on it, right? And if it's taken another week or two just to get to these vessels that are anchored for them to get worked, we already have an equipment shortage in China and Southeast Asia. And now we've got all this equipment that's running at 2 to 3 weeks delay on even getting unloaded to get back so we can load up more product. So the origin equipment shortages, huge issue, not going to go away anytime soon. And we are just seeing some astronomical pricing for containers moving to the U.S., whether, you're moving it into Southern California and the containers terminating there. If you're moving to the Midwest, we're hearing rates of around $10,000 for a 40-foot container, which is absolutely mind-blowing. And everybody's looking to do the same thing. They want to diversify. Can I get on a different service that's going to call the East Coast and maybe even a Gulf port, maybe Prince Rupert? All these services are full. So we don't see vessels that anchor on the East Coast or the Gulf Coast, but those services are full, and there's just no space. So it's unfortunately one of those problems that there's no immediate solution unless you have the budget and the appetite for air freight. So the best thing that you can do is talk to your finance people, talk to your merchandisers, talk to your buyers, talk to everybody, and make sure that they're informed on what's happening so they can make the necessary adjustment. But first and foremost, I would always go back to my finance people to let them know the situation and let them know that the costs that they have traditionally seen and probably budgeted for are not going to be something that's going to hold for the time being. And they're going to want to true up that budget on a monthly or quarterly basis.